Judah Taub is the co-founder and managing partner with Hetz Ventures. He is a veteran of the Israel Defense Forces, and he is the author of How to Move Up When the Only Way is Down. Welcome back to the show, Judah.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yeah, excited to have you back on. Refresh our memory. Hasn't been that long, but tell us a little about your personal life, some more about your work, and why you do what you do.
Yeah, great. So I run a venture capital firm. So we manage roughly $300 million and we invest in early stage startups, particularly in tech startups. And I do what I do because I enjoy it. And a big part of my job is working with entrepreneurs at those critical moments when they're trying to figure out what path is the one that is most likely to lead to both success and ideally very big success. And a big part of the book that I wrote, How to Move Up When the Only Way is Down, is taking ideas primarily from AI, but trying to apply them to humans when we humans have to make decisions. So when you're deciding whether you should be launching a new venture, moving your company one way versus the other, even just thinking about what course to take in university, these are all things that at these critical decision points, sometimes AI can suggest techniques that we can optimize and learn from and make better decisions.
So we're constantly making decisions, and I think that we all kind of look back on decisions that we made and scratch our heads as to why we did it or wish we had done things differently. And sometimes we make just the right decision, but can always make better decisions, Judah.
Yeah, decision making is one of those evolving topics, and the particular angle that I took in the book was one that's called local maximum. So the challenge that AI faces, and we humans face just without realizing, is we're trying to reach some goal. And the easiest way to imagine this is imagine you're dropped off in a desert and you're trying to reach the highest point in this vast desert with many mountains, etc. And so what you do is you find a pretty tall mountain and you start climbing up. And when you reach the top of the mountain, you feel obviously very good, sweating. You've reached the top of whatever you were trying to climb. And this is obviously could be your career, it could be your relationship, it could be your sort of the business you're running, whatever you're trying to achieve. But at that point, you realize that there is a larger mountain, one that you didn't see beforehand, but it's maybe just behind or off in the distance. And the challenge you face now is that you're at the top of a mountain, but the only way you can get to a higher point in this field is by going the whole way down off the mountain you're currently standing on. And that's what mathematicians and data scientists call a local maximum. You're at a maximum point, you're at a point you can't go up from, but you have to go down to go back up. And what I talk about in the book is techniques that humans can use from the world of computing to, number one, identify in advance that this mountain is a local mountain. So a local maximum, maybe stay clear of it. And two, even when you're climbing something up, what you can do to try and make sure that you end up on a mountain that you're happy with and not one that later on in your career, in your life, as you mentioned earlier, you say, oh, I wish I made a different decision earlier on.
So the that's perfect because that's something I had a question about is you talk about in the book um, immigrants who working at a gas station and then how do you make the transition to become a tech entrepreneur? And what I was thinking about was the context of growing up in a really, really tough environment, be it poverty, be it gang violence, and you're looking all around you and you're observing what's possible. And that's essentially your local maxim is I can I can do this thing, but it's not. I guess the question is, it's better asked, how do you help people to identify that there is more? Because if you're in an environment where all you see are people that aren't good examples, but how do you break free? Because some people sometimes do.
Excellent, excellent question. And yes, one of the things I talk about in the book is how you can overcome valleys. So you're at one point, and there's a big valley between you and a much better point, but you really got to, as you mentioned, identify that there's a better place. So you've got to be aware of it, but then you've got to go through this painful process of going down to go back up. And there's a part of the book that I talk about that. And one of the examples I give is one from a non-profit called Tech Korea. And this is a non-profit based in Israel, where what they have done is they have built a system that helps specifically Ethiopians who don't have an impressive or at least monetizable skill set, and takes them from the very local maximum they're in today, things like working at gas stations or jobs where their opportunities don't increase throughout their career dramatically, where their salary at best is increasing with inflation, and they help them get off of this mountain and into tech. The guy who's been the CEO of this for the last 20 years, an Ethiopian himself, who sort of was the first educated member of his entire family, like finished the high school diploma. He says, like, you don't realize people in my community don't know that there's a better opportunity out there. And even if they do know, they don't know how to try and pursue it. And even if they thought they knew how to pursue it, all the odds are stacked against them along the way. And so what they've really done in this particular case is they said, look, the valley, so now you can see like the valley, the metaphor valley that I've described, he said it's just too big. These individuals need a monthly salary for them to go and apply to college, university for 3 years, to not be making that salary, even though it's not a huge salary, but from the gas station or the supermarket that's paying them sort of what it's just too much to give up on. And at the end of it, what, they have a diploma from some place, but how do they know they'll get a job? So what the guy's name is Takala. So what Takala did is he started a nonprofit whereby he reached out to a number of large corporations, and these are proper tech companies like Intel, Mobileye, and others. And he said, look, I will bring you really good people who will be able to sort of pass this and this and this test in things like QA or front-end development, etc. And I just want to make sure you give them a shot. And then he went to the Ethiopian community and said, look, I'm going to choose the top 20 individuals, roughly the ages 25 to 30, and we will go through a gruesome process of 10 months. And from not knowing maths, and some of them don't know English very well, etc., I'm going to turn you into guys who can ace these tests. And we're now 20 years later, and every year it's not 20 individuals anymore, but it's closer to 200 are going through this process. And the way he's been able to make the valley more palatable, so I'm going back to that valley, is number one, he says to them, guys, you don't have to pay for this. So it's fully covered. So I'm not going to be giving you money. So you're still going to have to forfeit the income for those 10 months, but at least you don't have to go out of pocket. So that's number one. Number two, crucially, it's not 3 or 4 years. It's only 10 months. It's 10 months where they work 6 to 7 days a week, 12, 15 hours a day. So like you've really got to be willing to do this, but it's only 10 months that they're forfeiting it. And then the last part is he's been doing this for so long that he can semi-guarantee that they will get a job in high tech afterwards. So the stats on that is, to date, 93% of the Ethiopian individuals who have gone through Tech Korea's 10-month course have landed a job in high tech. Interestingly, the average job in high tech on day one, when they're a junior developer, they are earning twice what they were earning in their previous jobs. So it's roughly double. So what he's done, going back to the metaphor, is he said, I'm making the valley dramatically shorter, not as deep. And at the same time, I'm showing you that this other mountain is with a 93% probability one that you can climb onto. And so the combination of these things is one method that one could move up, even when the only way is down, the name of the book, in the world of nonprofit.
What an incredible thing that this individual has done.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, by the way, if you want, I mean, we've become friends over the last, I think, 6, 7 years. But like I interviewed him and put it on a website of judahtaub.com, so you can see the interview with Takala, and he's got an amazing personal story as well. But I'll give you another cool stat, which is the vast majority of the Ethiopians that go through this program are the first generation in their entire family to acquire a diploma, and never mind even in tech. So there's always an emotional part at the beginning of the course where they all say, like, my family is lying on my shoulders. They're all sort of banking on me to be the one to succeed. And then he's got all the emotional stories of people coming back after they get their first real paycheck, and they just don't know what to like. It's life changing for them. So yeah, the key point for me is that a lot of the insights that come from technology are no less applicable to humans, even in things like Ethiopians getting into technology.
Is this, I can't help but think and ask, is this like the 4 minute mile? Like once somebody
Um,
did it, then they realized that other people could do it. Is there some of that going on?
uh, so specifically with the Ethiopians, yes, for sure. Once you have 20 from the first year and 20 from the second year and 30 or 40 from the third year, then it attracts others. Um, but yeah, I think a lot of the things in life, it's not as scary once you see other people doing it. So there might be some of that as well.
I mean, and again, what an incredible story. Um, so in that example, how obviously it's enabling a new career and a new life through tech and using technology to do this. How else is AI playing into that? Or
So
how is the way?
yes, AI is playing into that sort of in two ways. The first way is actually AI is making it easier to become a coder. So if once upon a time you needed to go and study for 4, 5, 6 years and maybe sort of learn a bunch of maths and data science to be able to be a good programmer, today AI is lowering the barriers. It's much easier to become a coder than before. AI is just making it easier. So I know it's still scary. I know fear is probably the number one reason people don't want to become, oh, I'm not good at this stuff, or this is not for me. But in reality, if once upon a time you needed sort of numerous years to get in that first job to be able to do something with code, today it's dramatically easier. So people like tech career have actually dramatically benefited from this. And my estimate is that this will continue. So that's big number one. And then number two is AI is not directly affecting it, but some of the ideas from AI, like going down a mountain to come up, is something that AI constantly does. So when you do Google search, when you do Amazon Prime, when you're trying to pick something on Walmart search, and their AI algorithms are calculating what the best solution is to any one of these queries, they are in their own world going up mountains and figuring out different techniques of how to go down and back up. And one of them that they use is very similar to Takala, shortening a valley, making it less deep, and before going down to come back up, checking that the other side is really a lot greener. And so it's the ideas from AI that are going to be, to an extent, even more effective and influential.
I think that makes a lot of sense. Is this framework, is this a way to solve impossible problems, or at least a framework that we should attempt to solve impossible problems with? Seemingly impossible? Like let's
Uh,
say just like conflict in the Middle East, for example. It's like we've been trying to do this for a long time and we seem to be hitting local maximums. Or that could be
yes.
the worst example ever.
No, no, it's a good question. So I think this is a set of tools that one, meaning an individual or a community, can use to either address or readdress problems, to find new solutions that before we may have missed or not thought of. I'll give bit of a wacky example. So I think it was Indonesia, there was a challenge because monkeys were coming and stealing villagers' food, and they didn't know how to trap the monkeys. And the way they ended up catching them was they took a box that they tied to the ground with a hole just big enough for the monkey's hand to squeeze in, and they put a treat for the monkey, like a nut of some sort, inside the box. And what happened was the monkeys came along, they squeezed their hand into the box, took the nut, but once they grabbed the nut, they couldn't get their hands out. And the villagers had all these boxes, and they would come back to where they put them, and they would see a whole bunch of monkeys wailing, screaming out, etc., with their hands stuck in the box. They couldn't get away. The interesting thing is that the monkeys could easily get away. All the monkeys had to do was drop the nut. If they dropped the nut, they could squeeze their hand back out. The problem was that the monkeys couldn't get that they were better off dropping the nut so that they could escape. In the monkey's mind, they are monkey stuck with nut. And if they drop the nut, they are monkey stuck without nut. So they're better off being monkey stuck with nut. And so there's this psychological barrier that they can't get around, which would have allowed the monkey, instead of being caught, to easily have escaped. Now, we're smiling, you and I here, thinking, well, how stupid this monkey is. But in reality, we humans do this all the time. And we do this, and in the book, I give examples from sort of military conflicts through to the way they sort of build cars and ships. You see these examples in the sort of Second World War. You see these examples that we come across day to day. And this is just from a psychological perspective. So I'll just give it an easy, like just a day-to-day one. Very often with founders of new startups, they've got their own psychological barrier. They think the market they're trying to address is this big, but really the market is huge. So one of my favorite quotes was the CEO of Blockbuster talking about his market when he was back then competing with Netflix, and nobody cared about Netflix. Everybody was looking at Blockbuster, the big company. And he said, we have something like, I'm not getting this exact, but it was something like we own 90% of the DVD rental market. Mm-hmm. And you think like he's saying, we own 90% of the DVD rental market. And it's this psychological barrier of realizing that actually, yeah, you may have 90% of that market, but there might be a completely different market, which is infinitely bigger, infinitely more interesting at this stage because it's growing so much faster and the internet's going to change everything. So there's many examples where we humans aren't much wiser than the monkey with his hand stuck with a nut.
I think that that's a great and awesome story. Perfect. Does AI know? Because AI can't see the future. So how does AI know, or AI just recognizes things are
Great. So AI doesn't know. Okay, it's not like AI. If AI was making the decision for the CEO of Blockbuster, or AI was the monkey, it would necessarily know. But what AI has learned is to make decisions and to take certain strategies that increases its chances of success dramatically. So I'll give an example. AI has learned to do many random trials along the way. If AI was the monkey with its hand stuck, it would have tried to try and pull again, try and pull a third time. But after a bit, it wouldn't carry on like the monkey just pulling. It would also let go of the nut, also maybe throw the nut against the wall within the box. It would maybe also jump on its head. It's learned to do lots of trials and errors, and it learned also which trials it should do. So if it was Blockbuster, it would be trying out many very random things in parallel. Would it have necessarily landed on a Netflix? I don't know. But the chances of it just climbing this barrier with more and more capex spend on stores and more DVDs without doing these other ones is very, very low. I'll give one more insight to that. So the most used or commonly sort of referred to large language model today is GPT. And if you look at the progress between GPT 1, 2, 3, 4, etc., And if you look at the way the engineers are building these models, they're adding a lot of muscle and agility and all of these things together, because every time they've got to add everything. It's like with an iPhone. The newer iPhone has to have also better battery, also better sort of camera. But the main thing they're adding above everything else is making it far more flexible. It's not making it more powerful. They're doing that as well, but it's the flexibility to be able to try out different things and to cross learn. The number of, in technical language, it's the number of neurons rather than the number of layers that are making the LLMs infinitely better.
So that certainly makes sense that it's just constantly looking for new ways to iterate and explore problems to or solutions to problems. Should I be considering that by tapping into this tool that is AI, or should I? I'm cognizant that I have limited amount of attention, so should I constantly be trying to iterate and look around corners?
So what was, okay, I'll give it. So like an analogy here would be you go to the gym, you have an hour in the gym. What do you do for your workout in the gym? And what some people do is they become extremely muscular at a single type of exercise. So you could go to the gym and then just do bench presses. And every time when you do bench presses, it's like that single sort of as much weight as you can, one sort of rep. That's it. You can imagine what that guy that we've described looks like, sort of massive chest, like tiny rest of his body. And then there's the other one who comes in and is trying to get more of an all-round build, doing a little bit of this, doing a little bit of that, a little bit of agility, a bit of flexibility, doing etc. Now, if they compete with each other, who is going to win? Now, you're going to turn around and say, well, it heavily depends what they're competing with. If it's bench press, it will be the first. If it's something else, it's probably the second. What AI is learning is as we live in a world that is unpredictable, we don't necessarily know what will happen tomorrow. Queries that GPT is getting are changing the whole time. People expecting different answers. The ratio of agility versus muscle should be more towards agility. When we build businesses today, when we build ourselves, we tend to go towards muscle. What I mean by muscle is I'm a lawyer, I've got some free time, I'm going to study to be an expert in a more particular type of law. And when I have, I'll be even a bigger specialist in this very, very, very narrow field. That may work out well. What a lot of these AIs and the way AI is progressing is learning is in the long run, especially in this vastly changing world, we need to make sure that we are more adaptable, more agile than just being muscular. So when you go home and say, what should I be doing? I would say, try and make sure you're spending a reasonable percentage of your time, not on the one area that you're already good at, the one area that you're trying to excel in, but try to add other things so that if this one area doesn't succeed, you have other ideally complementary skill sets that come into play.
Brilliant. Perfect. Judah, thank you so much for coming back on. Where can people learn more about you and connect? Where can they get their copy of How to Move Up When the Only Way is Down?
So the easiest place is on Amazon, but otherwise you can also look at judahtaub.com.
Excellent. Well, if you enjoyed as
Thank you
much
very
as
much,
I
George.
did, thank you, brother. Go to judahtaub.com. Check out all things that Judah is working on. Pick up your copy of How to Move Up When the Only Way is Down at Amazon. And keep focusing on developing a little bit more mental agility and flexibility. I love it. Thanks again, Judah. Until next time, remember, do your part by doing your best.